I actually had AI write an opener. Do you want me to just go ahead and do it?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
For the real vibe, can we have it read out loud by like early 2000s speech to text to speech?
Welcome to the AAG podcast, the show where we cut through the hype and get into what AI actually means for your business. I'm Leon, joined by Jack, and today we are diving deep into the world of AI and automation. We're talking Microsoft Copilot, and the bigger question everyone's asking right now, is AI actually working, or is it just still a very expensive promise? And we dive into the cost of shallow automation.
Talking about the difference between when AI is a personal assistant and when you actually use it to do something productive from a business level, rather than it being, I'm going to ask it how I write a business proposal. And it's more going down the lines of, well, how can we integrate this kind of technology into our process pipelines? A little bit like how we're doing it at the moment with passing through ticket data and having that summarized through to give us a summary of that ticket information, but it takes into context other recent tickets that we've had logged from similar customers and applies to be able to give us a bit of a summary of this is the root of the issue and these are recommended first steps, rather than it just being generic with information on the internet is.
Yeah, I think a lot of customers are also just saying we want to play around with AI, and then we'll just give them a few Copilot licenses and away they go. But I think it needs to be deeper than that. So what we're having with a lot of our clients at the minute is working groups to establish how customers are using technology, how they're interacting with it, and seeing how we can apply smart AI and automation to that workflow to actually reduce expenses. So, for example, someone doing manual entry for an expenses app, say, I don't know, HR lady spends 30 hours a month doing that work, manual data entry, but with smart AI and automations, you can reduce that to 5 hours. And the tangible cost there, the saving there, is you're no longer paying your employees 25 hours to do that. They can be focused on other tasks, which at the end of the day means they are doing more valuable tasks for you as a business, which impacts the bottom line at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's also worth looking as well in terms of AI and automation. I think it's very easy to look at the AI part of that because that's the new kind of shiny part of the technology that we've got offered to us. It's the new buzzword. Whereas automation in it, you can do a lot with automation that isn't AI, but it itself is more effective than AI because that automation action taking the human out the journey is what AI touts to do in a lot of instances, but you don't need it. In a lot of cases, if you've got an understanding of what your processes are, or even if you don't have an understanding of your processes, if you've got the desire to learn more about your own business processes, then you can take a look at those processes and see, well, what in this actually needs a human to do this? Do I need somebody running around the office and getting approval for this piece of paper from 10 different people? Or could we actually just put that down a workflow and not worry about it and let the technology look after itself?
Yeah, it's about applying the AI and automations to the right situation as well. So, for example, with AI, if you just applied that to a workflow, you'll get a different output depending on what your input is. Because obviously AI can hallucinate. It can not necessarily, well, it can make things up. That's what hallucination is. But it can also, the outputs are not always standardized, so they can be different. But if you use automations and stateful or stateless workflows, you know what you're inputting. You're inputting X and you're outputting Y. But with AI, you're inputting X and you could get A, B, and C. There can be some guardrails put in with AI to push it down that path, but it's not always 100%. So it's about applying the right solution to the correct problem.
Is AI actually improving productivity, or is it just making admin faster? I'm not even so sure it's really making admin faster, in fairness. I think AI, as a lot of businesses, have integrated it so far, which surmounts to giving people a Copilot license and letting them chat with the agent. What that will speed up for them is it will allow them to ask questions about how to do bits of their job that they're not sure how to do, that otherwise would have been a Google search and would have been looking at the top results on Google. It's now asking AI and just trusting what it says verbatim. So the parts of the job that I would sort of see as admin in terms of people's role, there's not a great deal that AI can actually do for them in the way that it's being integrated into businesses. So it's not even, in my opinion, making admin any faster. It is just an additional tool that serves a lot of the same purposes as Google. And Google can't be used to make your processes any quicker, unless your process is to find out information about something. It can be made quicker, but that isn't what businesses are looking for.
No, I don't think it's making admin faster at all. Not because there's any problems with what you implement or it's a problem with the technology, but I don't think that's the intended aim of AI. It's a tool to help you in your role. And I think if implemented properly, it doesn't make administration faster. It's as much about user adoption as well. So you can give people Copilot licenses, but you can take a horse to walk, but you can't force them to drink. So, people have been using technology the same way for 20, 30 years. And especially certain people who, only use technology as a part of their job, not necessarily all of their job. They've done it such a way for so long that that's a big part of the problem when you're talking about adopting Copilot. It's about changing them and their processes as much as it is. It's as much a people problem as it is the technology problem, to be fair. It's about educating and showing what it can do for them. So if they're doing an admin task that takes 10 hours a week, for example, and showing them, well, if you do this, this, and this, that admin task, that boring, repetitive task that you no longer enjoy doing, is now reduced, and you can focus on tasks in your role that you do enjoy doing. So it's not necessarily making admin faster, but more allowing you to do the areas of your role which bring the most value to the company and getting rid of those boring, repetitive tasks. And that's true of AI and automation. So both of them, really.
Something you said there that's quite interesting is it's quite easy in positions like ours where we spend a lot of time working on laptops, on technology and that kind of stuff, to forget that a lot of people's jobs purely focused on working on a laptop and filling in a document and doing whatever it is we do day to day. A lot of people's jobs do have that kind of that hybrid element of it too. People that work in industry, they're going to be doing bits on a laptop to do that administration part of their role, but then there is also the very non-technologically enabled part of it. It might be manning equipment in a foundry, it might be whatever it is that they are doing, and finding ways to try and help those aspects of the role as well. Something that you can't do just through an LLM, through ChatGPT, through Copilot. That is something where you need to start looking at sort of that idea of shallow automation and bringing that into a far deeper integration of the technology, of the process available to us, to look at those processes and figure out, well, where can we speed this up, even when we're not talking about technology.
And I truly think that AI can improve productivity anyway. It's just a matter of implementing it correctly. So an example of what I've done in my role is data enrichment. So when we get new customers, new businesses through in our CRM platform, it's enriching that data with publicly available information about that business. So it's, scanning DNS records, it's scanning recent news, it's scanning LinkedIn, scanning Facebook, etc., to really enrich that data and provide a story of that customer. Now, if I was going to do that manually, I was going to search through websites and whatnot. It would take me 2-3 hours to pick all that information out. But with AI, well, it's partly automation, partly AI. So the automation comes in, kicks off a workflow, and then it provides information for an LLM then to put some intelligence around it and produce a nice report. And that's really improved productivity, because instead of me spending 2 or 3 hours going and researching this customer, that 2 or 3 hours can be spent actually in front of customers doing what I do best, in that trying to sell solutions, improve workflows, improve businesses, etc. So for me in my role, it has improved productivity. Why your best employees are still doing low value work.
I think what you find as well is, as businesses grow, as all businesses hope to do, as you grow, the amount of work that you have to do as a business increases. And if you get to a point where you can't take more work on without bringing more personnel in to help actually do that work, your pay on payroll is going to rise at an equal rate to what your income is, which isn't going to help your business grow at all. In fact, it might do the opposite to it if payroll might far exceed what the increasing customers that you're getting. So it may get to a point where it's not profitable to grow as a business because you can't do it. And that is where you need to start reviewing, well, what are my team actually doing at the moment, day to day? Because if we can't streamline this to speed it up, this is going to completely hamper the growth of the business. We're not going to be able to go anywhere with this. And we're going to be stuck in this sort of equal step of more business, more personnel, more business, more personnel. There is obviously always going to be a point where, as you grow, you need more personnel. That is natural. But if it has to grow at an equal rate, you've got a problem, because you need to have workflows in place for your work that can scale regardless of how many customers, how many projects it's actually managing. If you are spending 10 hours a week chasing down project managers, trying to get latest updates on projects so we can update KPI reports, that is going to turn into 15 hours. When you've got more projects, that's going to turn into 20 hours, it's going to turn into 30 hours, and you're going to need more people doing the same thing. Whereas that's where you need to start looking at your process improvement, embedding of applications, workflows, automations. So rather than somebody having to track down all that information, instead, that whole aspect of chasing down the information and getting what you need is automated. The expectation is on the person with the data to provide it through a mechanism that works. That employee that was then chasing for all of that information before can now just take that data that's given to them and do what they need to do with it. It may be now they've got the time to do a lot more with that information, rather than just collating the information and presenting it to managers or however they might be using that information. Instead, they can take that data and they can start analysing it. Let's look into some insights that we can pull from this data to see what this actually means, rather than just saying, this is it. We can now start saying, well, this is it, and this is what it tells us, because we've got the time to be able to start doing that now.
Yeah, and for businesses, it really links back into the productivity per person metric. So if you was doing, you're a 20 user company and you've got in manufacturing, let's say, you pay your employees X amount, that's your wage bill, and you get Y amount in income. If you just scaled normally, you'll just go one new person equals slight increase in income, another new person, another increase in income, etc. You could probably correlate that. But what technology does, especially AI and automation, is it improves that productivity per person. So it allows you to scale better. So that 20-person business, suddenly, when they've got AI and automation in half their processes, instead of making 100 grand per person, let's say, with technology, they can turn that into 200 grand per person. And they don't have to increase their salary spend or their salary commitment. Just invest in technology.
So what is the biggest problem that businesses are facing with shallow automation?
I think for a lot of businesses that I speak with, it's they've enabled Copilot. They're using Teams premium features or transcriptions to record their meetings, etc. And then they think that's it, they've done, and they're not really seeing a tangible return on investment for that. So what I think they need to do is really just go deeper. So instead of just enabling these features, actually review your processes internally, see what makes sense to automate, or see what makes sense to use AI for. Like, we've not even touched on AI agents yet, which are agents that you can build in your own tenant with your own account with no special licensing. You just tell it the kind of agent you want it to do. For example, you want it to review a data set and then produce a report once a month. Great, Copilot agents will go and build that for you. You don't even need no experience, don't need any of that, and it's no code as well. So it's not even low code, it's a no code platform. And anyone in the business is enabled to do that. I just think it needs discussions with multiple departments on how best to implement it for their role.
On there as well, there's a really interesting process that I have seen in the past with other platforms. I've seen it before with companies trying to implement Power BI for reporting purposes, and it's the same thing with Copilot and Copilot agents. Your employees, your members of your team, you've got them there doing a particular job. If you've got somebody in the finance team doing payroll, they are an accountant, they know how to do numbers. That's what they do. What they are not is they are not a data analyst. They are not AI engineer. And what can often happen is when businesses are giving their employees these tools, it's seen as giving them another tool in their tool belt. But what can quite easily happen is you've given them a tool in their tool belt, but they have got absolutely no idea how to use that tool. They don't even know what the tool does, let alone where to start with it. So there is a organizational angle that needs to be considered when deploying any tool, especially AI Copilot agents, workflows, whatever it might be, where there needs to be an element of assistance from the organization to engage with their employees, with their teams, to figure out where they can use these tools best. Because even if you've given them a functional no-code solution, there's still an element of you need to know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, if you don't even know what it can do, it's never going to give any return on investment, even if it is easy to use.
But it can become a burden for employees as well. They've been told that we've got this tool to use and they need to use it to see a tangible return on investment. And you've got board level people shouting, saying, we bought this tool, we better be using it. Why is nothing improved? Why is our bottom line not gone up? And that's purely because you need to look at it from not just a tool to give to employees, but actually an organizational change. So look at it from a process point of view, look at what you can improve, look at the business outcomes that you want to achieve before you start going, we'll just enable Copilot. So decide that first, decide what outcomes you want to achieve, what actual benefits you want, and then sort of build from there, kind of like building backwards.
I think with that, it's kind of looking at that companies aren't kind of suggesting these days is that if you use AI, you have a performance edge over your competition, because that time's past. It's gone. That was 2020 when it first came out. Everybody has got access to artificial intelligence. Everyone's got Copilot. Everyone's got the same set of tools. What really matters now is that investment into how organizations want to use those tools. That's where the competitive edge is. That's where businesses will set themselves apart and be able to perform as a next tier up company compared to their competition that they have otherwise been comparing themselves with. It's that self-reflection to figure out where they can best use it that allows them to work with it. And that's not what not every company is doing. Companies are, like we said earlier, using AI, thinking they've done it, they've implemented it, they've got that tool in their tool belt now. But what they've not done is they've got their new impact driver, but they've not put the shelves up yet.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, everyone's got access to these tools now, have been for a couple of years, but not everyone is using it to the best that it can be. So it's not exactly giving businesses an edge just to enable Copilot and away you go. But what's actually giving businesses edge is incorporating it into the business. So everything from process flows, reviewing how your employees put in manual data entry, how they generate reports, how they make spreadsheets. It's actually being smart about how you implement these kind of things and not just saying, we've just given it to the employees and away they go. It's actually looking at it from the top down and from the bottom up at the same time. So it needs to be, businesses need to look at it as, it's a generational shift is what it is. I mean, AI itself has a ceiling. Large language models have a ceiling. Of course they do. There's only so much you can get out of it. And it will keep improving because it is improving at an exponential rate at the moment. But it will hit a ceiling. Then if you integrate it into business from every angle, that was what are going to give you the competitive edge rather than just saying, here's these tools to play with, off you go.
Where we are now at a point in time is in a similar situation to where we were when computers were first implemented into the workplace, when everything went from paper-based, stamping something for approval and being handed around, to now it's digitized on a computer. We're at that same point now, whereas instead of it's how you do the work, it's who does the work. And that who doesn't have to be a person. That who can be a process. And it's being able to get that set up in a way that makes you be more effective and allows you to scale better without needing to put more personnel at the issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And if you do implement it right as well, one person can end up being able to do the job of historically 10 people. So 10 years ago, if you got 10 people to do one role, with AI and automation, you could effectively mean they have the same output as what 10 people did 10 years ago with just one person. So that goes back to the productivity per person piece, in that if you implement the right technology at the right time, in the right processes, in the right method, in the right way, you can actually, instead of one person making you 50 grand as a business, that one person now makes you $250,000 as a business without any extra impact to that individual. It's just a lot of their manual stuff, their repetitive stuff, their more boring stuff is now automated, or a workflow does it for them. And what you want to get a point to as a business is having, for example, graphic designers, let's say, for example, they don't want to spend a lot of their time looking through sheets and picking out numbers and looking at order forms and everything. You pay graphic designers to design graphics. That's the point of their role. So if you can get your employees focusing on the value that they actually add to the business rather than the most boring and repetitive stuff, that's what's going to hit the bottom line, and it's actually what's going to give you that return on investment.
Biggest cost of shallow.
Cost of shallow automation.
Yes.
What do I think the biggest cost of shallow automation is?
Well, neither of us really.
Well, it's companies and business leaders that are buying AI tools and give it to their employees, and then not understanding how their employees are going to use it and how it's going to improve them, and also training as well. Lack of training that's provided on how to use it effectively. Like prompt engineering it's a whole thing, and it has been for years, in how to prompt the AI correctly to get the output that you want. And there's actually prompt engineers. There's roles for prompt engineers out there that will help you dictate how to prompt AI correctly. Because if you put crap in, generally you're going to get crap out. And so if someone doesn't know how to prompt correctly, or word what they need correctly, or say, I need it in this particular output, you're just going to get whatever the AI thinks you want. And all LLMs are is, they guess the next word in the sentence. So you could get absolute rubbish out of it.
And on that similar sort of vein, as well as to organisations not sort of delivering the proper training, the step sort of beyond that can have a literal cost to it is organisations that don't manage their AI effectively. If they aren't giving their employees the tools that they need for the ones that are ready, they may end up using non-secure alternatives. They may be pasting company data into ChatGPT or Gemini, and at that point, any information that gets provided to those gets re-ingested, and it is part of the learning models. So if you've put confidential company data into that, there is a strong risk that information could get regurgitated at a future point and leaked. It's not a secure way of doing it.
It's actually considered a data breach. So if you was to input this information into ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, any of the models, if you don't pay for the enterprise version of these models, because in the enterprise version they say it doesn't get re-ingested into the training data, whether or not you believe them is another thing entirely. But if you do put personal identifiable information or healthcare data, for example, into these AI engines, even without knowing, that can constitute an actual data breach that you need to report to the ICO, because that person's data is now in another company's hands, technically. So that is also, I agree, a big risk in companies that need to comply with data protection, that need to comply with GDPR, need to comply with looking after health data, if NHS, mental health, charities, any of that kind of thing. That's a big risk as well. So if you give your employers access to these tools, but then don't put any policies around it to control it, then that is a big risk as well. Well, thank you, Jack, for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I hoped it's been a good listen.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, am I a guest on the show?
But we're both guests.